This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we'll introduce Hibernate today. So basically, what is Hibernate? If you just go back to your JDBC, what was JDBC all about? JDBC was all about connecting Java with the database. Connecting Java with the database. In simple words, connecting Java with the database. Now, what is this Hibernate all about? So, Hibernate is something similar, but not exactly the same. So, whenever we talk about this Hibernate, we need to talk about ORM. What is that ORM? Object relational mapping. Object relational mapping. So whenever I talk about object relational mapping, it is all about the object, creation of the object, and that object is totally getting into the database. That object is getting into the database. To give a clear idea, just let me go down. Okay, so now here, what is that here? Student table. So what is student table containing? Student ID, student first name, student last name, student email. Yes, we created a student class. Student class, what we created? ID, name, last name, email. These are the variables. And you'll have getter setter method. Encapsulation, you remember, no? Encapsulation. It is as simple as that. Encapsulation, getter setter methods, right? And you have a, sorry, what do you say? Yeah, constructor of the student class, wherein you can take the data, and then you can have something like a toString, so which will display. Okay, we will see anyhow later again. So this class transforming its data into a table, transforming its data into a table. Yes. So what is ORM? Object relational mapping. So database table is nothing but relational database, RDBMS we say generally. Okay. So the connectivity or making the data to go into the database, insertion, deletion, updation, all those things can take place. All those things can take place. So what we are doing, what we are saying at the end of the day, the object relational mapping is nothing but a framework that will provide mapping of application objects to relational database tables, of course, and vice versa in the sense table to object to table to object. So like that, the data can be taken and given. So this is ORM for you. ORM stands for what? Object relational mapping. It's a technique for mapping application domain model, means that is student, into the database table. Is this line clear? ORM means. So now you hope you understood what we are going to achieve here. Yes. Now same thing. JDBC also was doing the same, but it was not making this ORM. So the object was not going. What we were doing, we were writing the code, insert into table name. So all those things we are writing, and we were directly writing a SQL statement from the Java program. Here we will not do that. We will map the objects into the database. That is why we call it as object relational mapping. Is this clear? Okay. So how we will do this? We will do this by JPA. What we'll do this by? JPA. JPA stands for Java Persistent API. Java Persistent API. So what is this Java Persistent API, sir? It is a specification. What is it? Specification. So it is a specification. It is not like something. It is not like a program or something. It is a specification. Means everything will be there. Everything will be there. We need to use that. We need to use that and do this process. What is that? What are they? We have to use. We have to access. We have to save. Persisting means saving, and we have to manage the data between Java objects and the database. Access, manipulate, persist means save, right, manage, all these things you can do with the help of the Java API. So Java API or Java persistent API, JPA, sorry. What is that? JPA. JPA means Java persistent API. What is it? It is a specification which is used for accessing the data, managing the data, saving the data, right? Managing means updating, deletion, all these kind of things, primary key, all these kind of things. Yes. Okay, so JPA acts as a bridge between what? O, I mean the class that we create and the relational database system. So with the help of some configuration files, okay, with the help of some utility classes, so many things are there. So all that we will be looking at. Okay, so there are various things. Hibernate is one of the API, but we have so many things like Eclipse Link, Apache, OpenJPA, so many things are there, but we are following what? Hibernate. As a Java specialist, we are following Hibernate. So there are many ORMs. There are many. Hibernate is not the only ORM. So we have many ORMs, but we are going for Hibernate ORM. What we are going for, sir? Hibernate ORM. Okay, right. Now, what is exactly the Hibernate? So as I've told you, Java based ORM that provide framework for mapping objects to data tables and vice versa. Just we discussed it, right? Yes or no? It is the most popular JPA implementation. It is a what it is doing? It is implementing JPA. Implementing JPA means it is working with the data, accessing the data, managing the data. Getting my points or not? Hibernate is in simple words, if you have to say, Hibernate is a ORM that is dependent on JPA, that is dependent on JPA, or it takes up the JPA implementation. It takes up the JPA implementation. Yes or no? Okay. It is an additional layer on top of JDBC. On top of what? JDBC. So JDBC is there. Okay, fine. So this is more than that. This is more than that and makes the job easier for a programmer. Yes, you don't have to write the SQL code again and again. Is this clear? So that is what is called boilerplate. What is that? Boilerplate. So boilerplate in the sense much more code written by the programmer. Yes. So Hibernate, Spring Boot, what they avoid, they will avoid the boilerplate. Boilerplate in the sense they will avoid the extra part of the coding. What they will avoid? Extra part of the coding. Okay. So the user do not have to totally depend on the programming things. Okay. So he just can concentrate on the implementation things rather than on the program, on the query like result set. You don't have to worry about all that. Yes. So simply Java 8 system.out.println he can use and print the data, right? He can use Java 8 techniques here basically. Hope you are understanding my point. So Hibernate is a ORM which is dependent or which implements JPA, and it is on the top of the JDBC and will avoid the boilerplate coding. Boilerplate in the sense much more extra coding, access extra headache will not be there. Is that understood or not? Yes. Okay, that is what we wrote here. So transparent persistence. So what are the features? Why Hibernate is the best nowadays? Hibernate manages the persistence of objects without significant changes to how those objects are designed. So what do I mean by this? So you don't have to make hundreds of changes. Just small changes will be effective in the database. So database independence, what do I mean by database independence? They are portable across all the databases. So it is not like for Oracle you write one code, for MySQL you write one code, for that you write one code, for MongoDB you write one. It's not like that. So we use a powerful language called HQL. What is that? HQL, not SQL. What is this? HQL. HQL means Hibernate Query Language. Hibernate Query Language. So something similar to SQL, but we will see the changes and everything. Yes. Okay. So database in, yeah, performance optimization means, as I told you, like it will be quickly loading. It will be quickly loading, so it will not have to look for kind of hard connection to the database, right? So many things will make it very, very simple and easy. So powerful query language, as I told you, HQL. What is that? HQL. So automatic schema generation, in the sense, so we can build the models. We can just one, suppose if you want to create one particular table, so you can just write one single line and get a table created. So many advantages are there, so we will see. So what are the things that are important for us? Okay, so these are all features and all that. Okay, the first thing, very, very important, is session factory. What is that important? Session factory. So you need to create some objects. You need to create some objects like session factory object, session object, transaction object. So these are helpful for the database communication. They are helpful for what? Database communication. What is the first one? Session factory. What is session factory? It is created during the application, and session factory. What is session? First of all, session is the communication. Session is what? Communication. So now what is the communication that happens over here? Communication between a Java class and the database. Communication between the Java class and the database. So you are communicating with a database from a Java object. Yes or no? So this is a session. Now you are creating a session factory of objects. Session factory of objects, in the sense, which will enable you to have longer sessions. Okay, so which will enable you to have longer sessions or larger sessions, whatever is required. So that is what is the meaning of the session factory. What you are creating? Session factory. Is the first session factory clear? So what we have to do? We have to initialize the session factory and keep it, so that whenever we require, we use it. Next one is session. What is session? Just now I told you, it is conversation between the application and the database. Application and the database. So session factory acts as a collection of sessions. Session acts as collection of transactions. Session acts as what? Collection of transactions. So collection means different objects. Session factory has several session objects. Session has several transaction objects. Yes, am I clear with my points? Session factory, session, transaction. What is transaction? Database represents abstraction or application form. So underlying transaction. See, transaction means, I just told you, inserting, deletion, update, all these are transactions. So where all of them are binded in? They are all binded in the session. So session factory, session factory you create, you get number of sessions. Session you create, you get number of transactions. Yes. Okay. Then connection provider. So connection provider, in the sense, manages the database connection. Manages the which connection? Database connection. Manages what? Database connection. And finally, transaction factory. Transaction factory, in the sense, which instances? Transaction instances. Which instances? Transaction instances. Session factory. What session factory will do? Session factory will be initialized once, and it will have what? It will have number of sessions, and number of sessions are created which will hold the transactions, and every transaction require an instance. Who will maintain that instance? Transaction factory will maintain that instance. Yes. And next, connection provider. So connection provider is responsible for the connection between the uh, database and the object. Is that clear? So what are the things required? Session factory, session, all of them we will use in the programming. Session factory, session, transaction, connection provider, and a transaction factory. Yes, these are the 5 things. So we will create. So some of them are interfaces, some of them are classes. How we use and all we'll see. Okay. Next, benefits, code efficiency, flexibility in code, advanced carry capabilities, communication, documentation, integration with Java. You can read them. So I'm not going to talk about all them. And then simplified code. You can read all them. So what do you call, all theoretical things. So advanced mapping features, transaction management, exception handling. All these are the important things about the Hibernate advantages and all. Okay, so our main concentration should be on how to create a application. Theoretical things I will give to you whenever you want, you read. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about all that theory. Benefits, no one is going to ask you in interviews also, but as per the notes you should have. That's it. No one will ask what is the advantage, why performance optimization is important. Fresher will not get all these questions. So freshers will get how you are creating application, how the flow is going. So these kind of questions a fresher will get. Okay, so first we'll understand the steps. Now first example, see there are number of ways to create Hibernate. We'll go one by one. First example, identify the pojos. Now for example, I want to create a student information. So first of all, I need to create a class. Which class? Student class. I want to create a student class. So student, class student, class ID, class ID. Okay. So role, I mean, name of the student. What are all this? All these are the variables, and again you have to have constructors and all. You need to identify that. So for student you need to create all this. If it is employee, you create employee ID, employee name, employee salary. So if it is product, product number, product name, and all that. Yes, is that clear? So that is the first step. Okay, identify the properties, so which you want to save. Now for a student I want to save ID also, I want to save name also, I want to save the percentage also. Yes or no? So identify the properties to save. Second step. Third step, annotate. So you use some annotations. What do you use? Some annotation. What are that and all we will see. Yes, we use some annotations. So next step, create a database schema. Create a database schema in the sense you need to create a database. First you have to install MySQL. You need to create a database where your data can go, and sit. Yes. What are the first 4 points will say you? What is the first point? First identify the use case. First identify the use case. So now you are creating student table, or you are creating employee table, you are creating a product table. So first use case you select. Okay, I selected student use case. Then identify what? Identify the Java bean or the Pojo class. Pojo means plain old Java object. So Pojo means what? Your class student, student ID, student name, student percentage, student phone. These are all the properties. These are all the properties. Third step, which properties you want to save? I want to save ID, name, and percentage. I don't want to save other things. Okay, you can leave them without saving. Yes. Okay. Next thing, you need to create the database. You need to create the database. Database is important. Okay, right. Then you need to add the Java libraries. So this is very important step. So now if you remember, when you're doing Java JSP, servlets, JDBC, you will take the help of some additional libraries. Now for example, servlet API.jar, JSP.jar. For JDBC you go for classes 123.jar or MySQL connector. Why all this? Or Oracle connector. Why all this? Because that will give you the additional classes, additional interfaces. So like this, you also have to include the libraries. Include what? Include the libraries. Getting my point? Am I crystal clear up to now? Yes or no? Okay. Next step, you have to create a configuration file. What do you have to create? Configuration file. So that configuration file will be used for mapping purpose. This database. This Java file. This utility file. This XML file. So like that, it will go for the communication. Which file? Configuration file. Which file? Configuration file. Okay. So now create Hibernate configuration. So depending on what type of application you create. So build a Hibernate session factory object. What do you have to create? Session factory from the configuration object. So all objects, you have to play with those objects. So then session, then you write what action you want, then you create the session, you create the transaction, you save the transaction. So many programmatical things will happen. In short, if I put it into 5 steps, one, I'll put it into 5 steps, so not 9 or 10, 5 steps. First one, you have to create the Pojo. Create the Pojo. Identifying and all, leave it. You create the Pojo class, right? So this Pojo class, you need to connect with the database. So you create the database. Two things over. What do you have to create? Pojo class. Then what do you have to create? Database. Why database? Because this Pojo has to go and sit there. This Pojo information has to go and sit there. Yes? Okay. Then you have to put the properties. You have to put the properties. Which file you need to put the properties, and I'll tell you. Whose properties you need to put? You need to put the Java properties. You need to put the database properties. Yes or no? First step is what? I'll make it simple for you. All that theory is waste. Okay. So first, what is the first step? What is the first step? Identify Java programs required. Identify Pojos. Next is create the database. Now next, tell your application this is database. Okay, so this is Java. I will give you the files which are required to access the database. I'll give you the files which are required to access this Java, right? Okay, then you write the configuration. So what configurations are? So what is Java's configuration? What are the Java database paths? Okay, so how Java is connected, all that settings. In simple words, settings. So settings you have to do. And finally, you have to create the session factories, create the sessions, create the transactions, and all these things. So in short, these 5 steps: Java, database, and the properties, then the settings, and then the objects, which will do the activities. Yes or no? Okay, right. So now what are the technologies used? We use Hibernate, we use Maven, we use Java, and we use MySQL. So already MyEclipse is installed for everyone, right? Yes, MyEclipse is installed now for everyone. MyEclipse or Eclipse rather. Eclipse is installed now. Yes. Okay. Now we will go for MySQL. What will go for? MySQL. Before that, I will just go with the steps, application steps. First, what you have to create? Java project. Just like our React. I think every one of you is in React. Okay. What we created first? What we created first in React? We created application, no? Yes or no? We created application or not? Okay, same way you have to create the Maven project and look at the structure. So the project structure I'll tell you, and there is a file called pom.xml. What is that file name? pom.xml. There you have to add the dependencies. There you have to add the dependencies. See, what are the dependencies I added? Hibernate dependency and MySQL dependency. I told you just now. I told you what I told you. Java you have to create, and then database. Now you both are ready. Now what is the third step you are doing? Adding dependencies. What dependencies you are creating? Hibernate and MySQL. Hibernate is for Java. MySQL is for database. That is what you are doing here. Yes? Okay. Then what I told you, then your objects creation and all those things will come into the picture. So if you selected student, there should be no argument constructor, there should be an identifier property. Okay, so how you are creating that, sir? See here, public class students. Okay, now this student we should call it as entity. How we are calling that as entity? By using annotation. By using what? Annotation. What annotation, sir? Entity annotation. What annotation? Entity annotation. Yes or no? Okay, right. So this class remains the same. Maybe we have to do the changes in the other files, but this class remains the same. Now, for example, if somebody is creating employee, what you will say? Public class employee entity, same. Entity is an annotation. Entity is an annotation. Okay. And next is what? At the rate table name is equal to student, means in the database, you will be connected as the student database table. In the database you will be connected as what? You will be connected as the student database table. Whatever things I'm doing here, that will be connected with whom? That will be connected with the student table. That will be connected with the student table. So you only create the table and you only get the results from the table or store the results. We are saying that. Yes. Now it is an employee class. Tell me what to do. Public class employee, at the rate entity would be same, at the rate table would be same, name would be same, but name of the table will be employee table. Yes. Am I crystal clear? No need to write select command, no need to write insert command, nothing. Automatically this only will write. Okay, I'll show you all the flow, then we will build the application. Yes, clear with the first points? Tell me what happened there. You identified that your project is a student based project. So what you are creating a student project. Okay, so student project requires a POJO class called student only. Now this student is not meant for only Java programming. This student is meant for Hibernate application. What is Hibernate application? Hibernate application is mapping the Java class to the database table. Means to the database I need to tell, no, this is an entity, this is a table, this is a real world table, this is a real world table. With the help of whom I will tell that? With the help of at the rate entity. And what kind of thing it is for the database? It is a table for the database. It is a table for the database. So table name is equal to student. Is this clear? Yes or no? Up to now everyone clear? Now what changes if employee comes? Table name changes, that's it. Everything remains the same. Okay. Now you have to identify the ID. ID is like primary key. ID is what? Primary key. So whenever you are working with the ID, it should be what? It should be a primary key. It should be a primary key. So how can I say that it is a primary key? You can simply say at the rate ID. You can simply say annotation at the annotation, remember or not? Annotation, you remember, at the rate override, at the rate suppress warnings. Okay, so you can create your own annotations. Okay, so these are values. These are values of the annotations. These are values of the annotation. Okay, next, generated value. So you don't have to give any value into the ID. Automatically that should be getting generated. For that, what we are using? We are using generated value. We are using what? Generated value. Strategy is equal to generation type dot identity. Okay, column. Who's the column here? Column name is equal to ID. Database related. In the database, the column name is going to be ID. Is this clear? Now again, think employee class. Employee name at the rate ID. ID will be same. ID will be same. Generated value will be same. But this may change. Here you may have something like EID. Is my point crystal clear? Yes or no? Okay. Now first name. Who is first name? first name is the name of the property in the Java class, but this is the name of the database column, database table column. You relate, you put whatever the data that comes in the first name, you put it in the first name column. We are saying name of the column, exactly, name of the column. Understanding? This is only like one time. If you understand, for all the other classes things remains the same. Yes, in the same way, last name and email. Now what is this? No argument constructor should be there. No argument constructor should be there. Okay. And in the argument constructor, what should be there? Student string first name last. This you know how to do, right? Okay. This will be automatically generated also. And you will have the setter and getter methods also. And finally, you have a toString method to display. This is for only display purpose. This is for only display purpose. Yes. Okay. So we will come back to that. No problem. Now, whatever things I told, you can just read from here. You can take your time, read them, try to understand them. Whatever I said, same things will be here. Today we'll just know the things. So tomorrow we will be installing MySQL. Okay, MySQL we have to install, and then we have to go for JEE. Everyone install JEE while installing Eclipse. Did you install JEE or you just install Java? There are two perspectives actually. JEE perspective you installed, or okay. So if at all you are confused, I'll tell you. So Java ఉంటుంది, Java EE ఉంటుంది. సో పైన పర్స్పెక్టివ్స్ ఉంటాయి మీకు. సర్వ్లెట్స్ చేయాలంటే JEE కంపల్సరీ. సరే, ఇవి అర్థమైనాయి అమ్మ అందరికీ? ఎస్. ఓకే. నెక్స్ట్ we have to create a config.xml file. Which file? Config.xml file. So you have to create config.xml file. So in that file you will put the properties. You will put what? Properties. So this is not the only way. I'm telling you, this is not the only way. There are number of ways to deal with it, but this is the easiest way. Okay, what is the file? Config.xml, and at the end I'll tell you which is latest development. So ఏది present real time లో యూస్ చేస్తున్నాను కూడా చెప్తాను, బట్ యూ హావ్ టు లెర్న్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్. ఓకే, సో ఇది తర్వాత యూటిలిటీస్ అని ఉంటుంది, అది కూడా నేర్చుకోవాలి. అన్ని నేర్చుకొని మనకి ఏది ఈజీ అయితే అది వాడుకోవాలి, రైట్? అట్లా అనమాట. సో వాట్ వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ నౌ? Hibernate config.xml, in which what you are doing? You are giving the connection. So now this will remind you of JDBC, రైట్? అక్కడ కూడా ప్రాపర్టీస్ ఫైల్లో కూడా పెట్టచ్చు మనం. ఓకే, సో మీకు సేమ్ అప్లికేషన్లో పెట్టారా లేకపోతే ప్రాపర్టీస్ ఫైల్ తీసుకొని పెట్టారా? సేమ్ అప్లికేషన్లో పెట్టింటారు. సో సేమ్ అప్లికేషన్లో పెడితే మీరు రాస్తారు కదా, కనెక్షన్ కాన్ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు డ్రైవర్ మేనేజర్. గుర్తొచ్చిందా? సేమ్ అదే, కానీ ఒక సెపరేట్ ఫైల్లో పెడుతున్నాం. ఏమని పెడుతున్నాము? ప్రాపర్టీ నేమ్ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు connection.driver com.mysql. So here we will go for MySQL. We'll go for what? MySQL. That is why tomorrow we will install. So ఇది localhost 3306. This is the database schema. I told you, right? You have to create the database. You have to create the database. Okay, so database you are creating and username password that you have to give, right? So connection pool and you have to say show SQL. So ఇవన్నీ create copy paste, just you have to do copy paste, don't worry. So don't have to type, all automatically అన్నీ వచ్చేస్తాయి, కొన్ని అడిషనల్లీ మనం ఇవ్వాల్సి అనమాట. ఓకే, తర్వాత యూ క్యాన్ క్రియేట్ ఏ యూటిలిటీ క్లాస్. వాట్ క్లాస్? యూటిలిటీ క్లాస్. సో యూటిలిటీ క్లాస్లో ఏమని చెప్పాను నేను? ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ తయారు చేసుకోవాలి అని చెప్పాను, అవునా? ఏమేమి ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ తయారు చేసుకో, దిస్ ఇస్ ఆల్ వన్ టైమ్ యాక్టివిటీ. ఒక్కసారి నేర్చుకున్నానంటే ప్రతి అప్లికేషన్కి సేమ్ అన్నమాట. సో యు ఆర్ క్రియేటింగ్ వాట్? సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. వాట్ యు ఆర్ క్రియేటింగ్? సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ స్టాండర్డ్ సర్వీస్ రిజిస్టర్. సో ఆల్ దిస్ కోడింగ్ పార్ట్ ఐ విల్ టెల్ యూ. సో మనం ఏం క్రియేట్ చేయాలనుకున్నాము? సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ క్రియేట్ చేయాలి. తర్వాత యూ హ్యావ్ టు వర్క్ విత్ ద సెషన్స్, యూ హ్యావ్ టు వర్క్ విత్ ద సెషన్స్. ఓకే, సో ఆ సెషన్స్ ఎట్లా ఏంటి అనేది మనం చూద్దాం. సో ఇక్కడ ఏం తయారు చేసాం మనము? we created the which file? util file. We created which file? Hibernate util file. Okay, then ఇది మనం రాసే క్లాస్ అన్నమాట. ఇక్కడ చూడండి, ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ సెషన్ వచ్చినాయా? సో ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ సెషన్, యూ బిగిన్ ద ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ అండ్ యూ సే పర్సిస్ట్ స్టూడెంట్, అంటే స్టూడెంట్లోకి డేటాని పంపాలి. స్టూడెంట్ అంటే ఎవరు? స్టూడెంట్ అనగానే స్టూడెంట్. ఓకే, న్యూ స్టూడెంట్. వాట్ ఆర్ ద థింగ్స్ గోయింగ్? రమేష్ కుమార్ @gmail.com. So this will hit where? This will hit our Pojo class. This will hit our Pojo class. Yes or no? So Pojo class hit ఇక్కడ ఏమంటున్నాము? సెషన్ డాట్ పర్సిస్ట్. హూ ఇస్ సెషన్? Session is the object of the session class, right? So session, you opened the session. This is all one time coding. Okay, one time while coding it will be very easy. Okay, so you have to start a session start చేయాలంటే ఏమనాలి? begin transaction. Then you say persist student. So this will directly go into the database. It will directly go into the database. And if you observe, okay, running okay, so if you observe here, you can just print the details out also. అర్థమైంది ఏమేం చేయాలో? ఏం చేయాలి చెప్పండి మళ్ళీ? we are going to touch 5 files here, or else 4 files are also enough. Okay, 5 files. What are they? Pojo, you have to create the database. So database creation అంటే ఫైల్ ఏం అవసరం లేదు, మీరు సింపుల్గా you can just right click, create database db అనేస్తే క్రియేట్ అయిపోతుంది. ఓకే, నెక్స్ట్ what you have to do? You have to put the properties ఎందులో పెట్టాలి? config.xml. Then utilities అంటే సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ. ఈవెన్ ఈ రెండు యూటిలిటీ అండ్ ద మెయిన్ రెండు కలపొచ్చు, కానీ విల్ సీ. ఓకే, కలిపితే ఈజీ అవుతుంది. సో సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ ఒకటి, ఇంకోటి సెషన్ ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ అంటే మన సెషన్ అవ్వడానికి. ఎస్, ఈ 5 ఫైల్స్ మనం తయారు చేయాలి. సో దీనికి మనం Maven ప్రాజెక్ట్ తయారు చేసుకోవాలి. తర్వాత వీ హ్యావ్ టు గో ఫర్ what we have to go for the database. ఈ రెండు కంపల్సరీ. సో విచ్ వీ విల్ బి డూయింగ్ ఇన్ అవర్ నెక్స్ట్ సెషన్. ఎందుకు ఇవాళ చేయొచ్చు కదా అంటే, ఐ వాంట్ యూ పీపుల్ టు జస్ట్ గో త్రూ ఆల్ ద థింగ్స్. ఒక్కసారి ఈ థియరిటికల్ థింగ్స్ ఒకసారి చదవండి, ఒక క్లారిటీ తెచ్చుకోండి. సో క్లారిటీ తెచ్చుకున్న తర్వాత మీకు ఏంటంటే ఈజీ అవుతుంది అప్లికేషన్. సో దట్ ఈస్ వై ఐఎమ్ గివింగ్ దట్ టైం. సో టుమారో వీ విల్ బి బిల్డింగ్ అవర్ ఫస్ట్ Hibernate application. Yes, so now you got an idea what is Hibernate application. ఒక ఐడియా వచ్చింది కదా? ఏంటా సింపుల్ ఐడియా చెప్పండి, ఒక 2 lines లో చెప్పండి. Exactly, Hibernate is an ORM which will connect a database, which will connect a Java class to the database. Simple చెప్పాలంటే. Okay, so it will not use SQL, it will use something like HQL. And what you have to design? You have to design a Pojo class అనొచ్చు, Java Bean అనొచ్చు, encapsulated class అనొచ్చు, అది మీ ఇష్టం. Pojo అనేది జనరల్గా యూజ్ చేసే టర్మ్. Pojo stands for plain old Java object. So Pojo, plain old Java object. Is this clear? సో ఈ విధంగా మనము చేయాలి. తర్వాత ఏమేమి తయారు చేసుకోవాలి? సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ, సెషన్, ట్రాన్సాక్షన్. ఓకే, సో ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ. ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ మీకు ఇక్కడ కనిపించకపోవచ్చు, బట్ ఇంటర్నల్లీ ఇట్ విల్ వర్క్. ఎస్, సెషన్ ఫ్యాక్టరీతో పనిచేయాలి, సెషన్తో పనిచేయాలి, ట్రాన్సాక్షన్స్తో పనిచేయాలి. ఈ మూడుతో పనిచేయాలి. సో ఆ మూడుని ఇప్పుడు ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ని బిగిన్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి, ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ని ఓపెన్ చేయాలి, సెషన్ని ఓపెన్ చేయాలి. సెషన్ ఓపెన్ చేయడం అంటే ఏంటి? సెషన్ ఓపెన్ చేయడం అంటే ఒక కమ్యూనికేషన్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తున్నట్టు అనమాట. అర్థమైందా? సెషన్ ఓపెన్ చేయడం అంటే ఏంటి? ఒక కమ్యూనికేషన్ని ఓపెన్ చేయడం. సో కమ్యూనికేషన్ ఓపెన్ ఎందుకు చేయాలి? కమ్యూనికేషన్ ఓపెన్ ఎందుకు చేయాలి? ఒక ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ చేయడానికి చేయాలి. మరి ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ని బిగిన్ చేయాలి కదా. ఒక కమ్యూనికేషన్ ఓపెన్ చేసామంటే సెషన్ ఓపెన్ చేసినట్టు. సో సెషన్ ఓపెన్ చేసిన తర్వాత లోపల ఏం చేయాలి? ఒక కమ్యూనికేషన్ స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి. స్టార్ట్ చేయడం అంటే ఏంటి? ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ని బిగిన్ చేయాలి. మరి ట్రాన్సాక్షన్ ఏం జరుగుతుంది? ఇన్సర్ట్ అవ్వచ్చు, డిలీట్ అవ్వచ్చు, అప్డేట్ అవ్వచ్చు, ఏదైనా అవ్వచ్చు. సో ప్రస్తుతం ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తున్నాము? ఇన్సర్ట్ చేస్తున్నాం. ప్రస్తుతం ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తున్నాము? ఇన్సర్ట్. మరి వేరే ఆపరేషన్ చేయాలంటే హెచ్క్యూఎల్ వస్తుంది అనమాట అప్పుడు. అర్థమైందా? ఈజ్ దిస్ పాయింట్ క్లియర్? ఎస్ ఆర్ నో? సో ఓవరాల్గా చెప్పాలంటే ఇంతే. లేదు థియరటికల్ ఇంకా చదవాలంటే మీరు చాలా చదువుకునేది ఉంది. ఓకే, సో దట్స్ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ మై ఎండ్. హోప్ఫుల్లీ ఎవ్రీవన్ అండర్స్టూడ్. ఎవరికైనా అర్థం కాకపోతే, అండ్ మేక్ యువర్ సిస్టమ్ రెడీ. మేక్ యువర్ సిస్టమ్ రెడీ విత్ అట్లీస్ట్ జేడబ్ల్యూ మావెన్ అని ఉంటుంది మీకు అక్కడ, మావెన్ ప్రాజెక్ట్. సో అది తయారు చేసి ఎస్క్యూఎల్ సరే రేపు చేద్దాం, 10 minutesలో అయిపోతుంది ఎస్క్యూఎల్. లేకుంటే ఇప్పుడు చేస్తా అంటే చేసేయండి. ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడికి వెళ్తారంటే నేను సరే ఎస్క్యూఎల్ చేసేయండి, లేకపోతే మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఇన్స్టలేషన్ చేయాలి అంటే మీరు మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్కి వెళ్ళిపోండి. మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్లో ఇక్కడ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్స్ అని ఉంటుంది. ఒక్క నిమిషం. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ చూడండి మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఇన్స్టాలర్ అని చూడండి. కొంచెం కిందకి రండి, లింక్ చేంజ్ అయింటుంది. ఇట్లా వచ్చిందా? కొంచెం కిందకి వెళ్ళండి. ఇక్కడ ఉందా? నేను మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్ కొట్టిన తర్వాత కొంచెం కింద, కొంచెం స్లో డౌన్ కిందకి వెళ్ళండి. కిందకి వెళ్ళినాక మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ డౌన్లోడ్ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఇన్స్టాలర్ అని ఉంటుంది. ఉందా? డౌన్లోడ్ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఇన్స్టాలర్. ఇంకా మీరు రెజ్యూమ్లో ఒరాకిల్ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ రెండు పెట్టుకోవచ్చు. డౌన్లోడ్ మైఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఇన్స్టాలర్ క్లిక్ చేయండి. ఈ స్క్రీన్ వచ్చింది అందరికీ? వచ్చిందా? వచ్చిందా? కింద 296.1 M ఉంది చూడండి, అది కొట్టండి. ఈ పైది వద్దు, 296.1 M అది కొట్టండి. నో థ్యాంక్స్, జస్ట్ స్టార్ట్ మై డౌన్లోడ్. లాగిన్ ఏం చేయొద్దు. నో థ్యాంక్స్, జస్ట్ స్టార్ట్ మై డౌన్లోడ్. కొంచెం టైం పడుతుంది. ఉంటే పర్లేదు, అంటే మీరు సర్వ్లెట్ జేఎస్పీ చేశారు కదా, అంటే ఉంటుంది. డన్. ఓపెన్ చేయండి, జస్ట్ డబుల్ క్లిక్ చేయండి. సో ఎస్ కొట్టండి. ఎస్సిఎస్ కొట్టడమే. నేను చెప్తా, ఒక్క దగ్గర ప్రాబ్లమ్, ఆ ఒక్క ప్రాబ్లం చేసుకుంటే ఈజీ అవుతుంది. సింపులే ఉంటుంది, నో ప్రాబ్లం. ఒరాకిల్ అంత టఫ్ కాదు. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ ఫుల్ అని కొట్టండి. ఓకే, సర్వర్ ఓన్లీ అట్లా కాకుండా ఫుల్ అని కొట్టేసేయండి. ఓకే, సర్వర్ ఓన్లీ, క్లయింట్ ఓన్లీ, ఫుల్, కస్టమ్ అని ఉంటుంది. ఫుల్ అని కొట్టేసి సే నెక్స్ట్, సే ఎగ్జిక్యూట్. ఒక్కొక్కటి ఇన్స్టాల్ అవుతుంటుంది. కంప్లీటెడా? ఓకే, సో ఇవన్నీ కంప్లీట్ అయిన తర్వాత నెక్స్ట్ ఫెయిల్ వచ్చిందా? ఏది ఫెయిల్ వచ్చింది? విజువల్ స్టూడియోనా? సర్వర్ ఓన్లీ చేసినట్టు నువ్వు ఫుల్ చేయాలి. ఏది ఫెయిల్ వచ్చింది? ఒక్క నిమిషం. సో ఏది చేంజ్ చేయకుండా ఇక్కడ నెక్స్ట్ కొట్టండి. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ నెక్స్ట్ కొట్టండి. ఇక్కడ పాస్వర్డ్ ఏదైతే ఉందో ఇది కొంచెం జాగ్రత్తగా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి. ఇప్పుడు ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నేను 1 2 3 4 5 6 పెట్టేస్తున్నా. 1 2 3 4 5 6 పెట్టేస్తున్నా. సో ఇది మాత్రం కరెక్ట్గా గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి మీరు. ఇది మిస్ అయిందంటే ఇన్స్టలేషన్ వేస్ట్ అయిపోతుంది. సో తర్వాత నెక్స్ట్, తర్వాత నెక్స్ట్, తర్వాత ఎగ్జిక్యూట్. అంతే, అదొక్కటే మెయిన్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఒక్కటే, మిగతా అన్ని కామన్. సే ఫినిష్, సే నెక్స్ట్, సే ఫినిష్, నెక్స్ట్. ఓకే, అక్కడ పాస్వర్డ్ కొట్టారు కదా, ఒక్కసారి ఇక్కడ చెక్ చేసుకోవాలి. చెక్ చేసుకుంటే కనెక్షన్ సక్సీడ్ అని వస్తుంది. తర్వాత నెక్స్ట్, తర్వాత ఎగ్జిక్యూట్. ఓకే, సే ఫినిష్. ఇది కావాలి కంపల్సరీ, రీఇన్స్టాల్ చేయాలి మళ్ళీ. ఒకసారి రీఇన్స్టాల్ చేసి ఎందుకట్లా అయిందమ్మా. ఓకే అమ్మా, రైట్. సో నెక్స్ట్ కొట్టేసేయండి, తర్వాత ఫినిష్ కొట్టేయండి. అంతే, ఫినిష్ కొట్టేసిన తర్వాత అంతే, నెక్స్ట్ 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 అంతే. సరే,